Hi, my name's Seth. I'm a program manager here at the Babler Outdoor Education Center. Today, we're going to be learning how to make Redbud Jelly. The things we need to make Redbud Jelly are redbud blossoms, sugar, pectin, lemon juice, and butter. Now our first step in making Redbud Jelly is collecting our blossoms. Now to collect our blossoms, we need to make sure we can identify a redbud tree. That is these trees that have these purple blossoms that are coming in late March to early April. They're one of our first blossoming trees here in the state of Missouri. They're really easy to identify. We want to make sure that we're not using a tree that's right next to a highway because we don't know if it's been sprayed with herbicide or anything like that. So we want to use trees that are far away from main use roads and we know what's been near them. So to collect our redbud blossoms, we're going to hold a container underneath them. We're going to hold the branch and then just run your fingers along the branch. And now we have redbud blossoms and we are going to put them in our container. We can just keep repeating this, pulling these blossoms off and throwing them in our container until we have about 5 to 6 cups of redbud blossoms. That's the amount that we're going to need to make our tea before we make our jelly. So now that we've collected all of our redbud blossoms, we want to make sure that we remove any sort of sticks or leaves that are in there, because if we leave those in there, it's going to leave a really bitter taste. So what I like to do is I just like to set them all down in a bowl and then pick any of the blossoms off any twigs that we happen to catch and go ahead and place them in our new bowl and set the twigs off to the side. So our next step is to rinse our redbud blossoms. We want to rinse our redbud blossoms to get out any sort of insects or stick debris or really anything in there that we don't want. So to rinse them, we're just going to put them in a strainer or colander of any sort and just rinse them how you would pretty much anything else. And once you have them nice and rinsed, you're going to go ahead and put them in a bowl that can withstand boiling water in it. So our next step is going to be bringing 6 cups of water to a rolling boil. Once we have it at a rolling boil, we're going to pour it slowly over these blossoms and then we're going to make sure they're nice and submerged with the spoon. So it looks like we're at a boil right now, so we're going to do just that. So we're going to take the water, slowly pour it over our blossoms. And then we're going to press the blossoms down just to make sure that they get nice and submerged into the water. You want to be careful, make sure that you don't overflow your pot here. I got really close right now. But once we get all these blossoms nice and submerged, we're going to go ahead and let it cool. And once it's cool, we're going to put it in the fridge and let it steep for a whole 24 hours. So now that we've let our redbud blossoms steep for about 24 hours, we're going to go ahead and put it through a strainer to get our pure redbud tea. Now you can put it through cheesecloth, that probably works a little bit better because it's finer. It might take a little bit more time, but I just use a really fine strainer like this to get out any of the blossoms and also any debris that may have made it through our sink process earlier. I like to use a ladle because this bowl does not pour very well. Alright, so once you have the liquid filtered from the redbud blossoms, that is your redbud tea. So we're looking to make about 4 cups. Now you probably saw at the end of that last part that I was squishing out the juices from the blossoms. After you pour it, you can squish a lot more liquid right out of those blossoms. So if you're struggling to get 4 cups, go ahead and try to do that. So at this point, you can do 2 things. You can either go on with the recipe and make redbud jelly, or you can make redbud syrup. It's basically just a drinking syrup type thing that you can add to drinks like lemonade, Gatorade, and things like that. But we're going to go ahead with our recipe and continue making our redbud jelly. So I left a couple little blossoms in here on accident, so what I'm going to do is when I pour it into our pot, I'm going to pour it right through the sieve again. So that's our 4 cups of redbud tea into our pot. And now I want to bring this to a rolling boil. Now, while we're waiting for this to get to a rolling boil, we can go over our other ingredients. we have 4 cups of sugar. It's not a healthy jelly, but it is a very good and yummy jelly. So we have 4 cups of sugar. We have a teaspoon of butter or some sort of butter substitute. And then we're going to have 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. I'm not sure if this impacts the taste too much. I've heard that it changes the color dramatically to a lighter color that makes it better appetizing looking. And then our last ingredient, which we're going to put in next actually, but our last one on our list here, is going to be our pectin. So I bought True Gel pectin, or Sure Gel pectin, but you can buy whichever type of pectin you want to get from the store. We use one packet that is 1.75 ounces. So that's what we're going to be putting into our pot. So another thing that you can do when you're waiting for your Redbud tea to boil is to go ahead and prep your jars. You're going to want to put them in jars that can seal pretty well. So I like to use different types of mason jars, and sometimes I will throw in a Tupperware jar in there if I know that I'm going to eat the jelly pretty soon, but mason jars are the best bet for sealing really tightly. But we're going to want to get those ready so that we can pour straight from the pot into there, or ladle it straight from the pot into there pretty quickly. So now that we have our Redbud tea boiling at a rolling boil, we're going to go ahead and pour this pectin in, and then we are going to set a timer for 60 seconds. So we want to pour this in, stir it, and start our timer for 60 seconds. But this whole time we want to keep it at a nice rolling boil to keep it absorbing and taking all that powder in. Now that we're at the end of that minute, we want to go ahead and add our 4 cups of sugar, 1 teaspoon of butter, and 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. So we want to add this in, start stirring, and once it turns to a boil again, you're going to go ahead and set the timer for 60 seconds one more time. So now that our mixture is heated for another 60 seconds, we're going to go ahead and take it off the heat, and we're going to pour it into our jars via a ladle, or if you have a good pouring pot, you can do that as well. I would prefer to ladle, a little less messy. So when we pour it into the jars, we want to make sure that we're not hitting our fingers and that we're also leaving some room. Because remember, this is liquid right now, but this is going to turn into jelly very quickly, and we don't want it to go over the top of our containers. Now that we have our jelly in our jars, we have 2 options. We can go ahead and seal it now if we plan on putting it in our pantry or sending it off to someone, or we can wait and let it cool if we plan on putting it in our fridge. We don't want to damage our glass by putting it in there right away. As you can see, we have a lot of jelly here, so it's really nice to share with your friends and family. They will love it and they'll ask for it year after year. I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and I hope you get a chance to get out there and make some native jelly yourself. And as always, thank you for being a part of our Community Ed family.